Hello everyone! Today we're going to learn how to play GridRunner. It is a new 3D printable cyberpunk solo game by Cyberforge, in which you can play through many different stories, eviscerate rooms full of enemies, and acquire high score points to compete against other players. In order to start, visit the GridRunner page using the link in the description below and choose the scenario you want to play. Each month brings a new adventure. On the scenario page you will find the list of all the elements that you need to go. 3D print the miniatures from the corresponding Cyberforge releases, 3D print the board and environment or use the included paper maps, and use regular print to prepare the adventure sheet and the character plus enemy cards. You will also need some D20 dice, a pen and access to the internet. And lastly, before you start your cyberpunk adventure, choose a GridRunner from a growing range of characters. Have their miniature and card ready, it's time to start. Confirm that you are ready on the website to see the map of the first floor and recreate it on your tabletop. This is an abduction scenario and I will be playing as Carbon Connor, a high-tech cyberpunk assassin. This is Carbon Connor's GridRunner card. His main statistics are health, speed and defense. He also has strength, agility and intelligence that are used in tests. He has two attack profiles, melee and ranged, that are used in combat. And he has a unique special ability that can be used only once per round. Let's begin the first round and place Connor in the dedicated starting location. The first thing to do in a round is marking the round progress on the adventure sheet. The sooner you finish, the better your high score. We start at first round. The second stage of the round is the GridRunner's turn. In your turn you can perform up to 3 actions. You can use them in any order you wish, and you can use the same action more than once. But beware! Using each action increases the threat level on your adventure sheet. The actions are: move, it allows you to move by the number of tiles indicated by your speed and increases the threat level by 1. Run, it allows you to move by 1 extra tile compared to move but increases the threat level by 2. Attack, it allows you to use one of your attack profiles and increases the threat level by 2. And finally, use skill, which allows you to use your special ability. It can be used only once per round and the threat level varies depending on the GridRunner and their ability. Be careful about increasing the threat level too much, as enemies will grow stronger the higher the bar goes. Now let's see how it all works. As my first action, I will use a move action. My speed statistic is 2, so I can move by 2 spaces. When moving, you can only move from one adjacent space to another. For all purposes in the game, diagonal spaces are not considered adjacent. You cannot also move through walls and enemies, of course. I will spend my move to reach a space with a mysterious crate. Immediately upon reaching this space, I can click on the corresponding crate on the website to learn its content. It seems that I have found a key to the exit B. After using a move action, I have to increase the threat level by 1. As the second action, I will use a run action. It works the same way as move action, but I get 1 extra move in it for a total of 3, and the threat level is increased by 2 instead of 1. As the last action, I will try to attack and eliminate an enemy with an attack action. There are 2 types of attacks, as you know, melee and ranged. Melee attacks can only be used against enemies on adjacent tiles. And then ranged attacks can be used against any visible enemy at any range, but they cannot be used if there is an enemy pestering us from an adjacent space. If you are not sure if an enemy space is visible for your ranged attack, confirm it by checking if there is a straight line between any point inside the 2 spaces that does not go through walls. In our case, Carbon Connor cannot use a ranged attack anyway because there is an enemy on an adjacent space. We'll use a melee attack against them right now. Check your melee attack profile on the GridRunner card for all attack information. The number of dice in the profile indicates how many d20 dice you will roll. The number inside the dice shows how much damage each successful roll will deal. Finally, the number in the corner is a hit bonus modifier that you will add to every dice result. Let's see how it goes. The results are 2, 7 and 15, and the results are increased by 4 as it is the attack's modifier. So 6, 11 and 19 are the final results, but will this be enough to defeat the goon? Let's see the enemy card, which are similar to GridRunner cards. For the purpose of our attack, we'll check the enemy's defense, which is 12. Each result that we rolled has to be equal to or higher than the defense after the modification in order to deal damage. This means that only one of our rolls from 6, 11 and 19 is successful. The enemy receives 1 damage, but their health statistic is 2, so we place 1 damage token next to the guy and he lives to fight another day. The attack action is resolved and the threat level is increased by 2, from 3 to 5. It now goes from low threat level territory into the medium threat level. After using the third action, the GridRunner turn ends. Always keep an eye out for the threat bar. It can never go beyond the critical threshold level, however, when it reaches it during your turn, it ends immediately, even if you still have actions left. The third stage of the round is the noise roll. It may randomly increase the threat level. You must roll a single d20 die, and if you roll a 1, you increase the threat level by 2. Between 2 and 10, you increase the threat level by 1. On 11 to 19, nothing happens, and on 20 you are lucky and decrease the threat level by 1. I have rolled a 3, which means that I increase the threat level by 1. The fourth stage of the round is enemy activation. Some or all of them will now move and attack depending on the threat level. If the threat level is low, only the enemies that can see you or are wounded activate. On medium level, all enemies in the same room as you activate, and the room is a section of the board that is fully surrounded by walls and closed doors. On high and critical threshold levels, all enemies on the board will activate. Because the threat level is now medium, both enemies in the room with me will activate and the enemies behind the door will remain idle. The order in which enemies activate is fixed. First, activate the bosses, then melee enemies, and then ranged enemies. In each group, start the activation with the enemy closest to you, and if the distance is the same, you can choose which one goes first. Melee and ranged enemies also behave in a slightly different ways. When a melee enemy is activated, it moves towards the closest space adjacent to you by the number of spaces indicated by its speed. If it reaches the space, it uses the melee attack, and if not, it uses its ranged attack, if possible. In our case then, the melee goon will activate first. He is already on an adjacent space, so he does not need to move and just swings with his melee weapon. Let's see the enemy card again. Apart from statistics and attacks, on each enemy card you will find a threat modifier. Depending on the threat level, the enemies become temporarily stronger. Because the threat level is now medium, the melee goon will attack with 2 extra dice in melee. The way that enemies attack is the same as GridRunners do. Let's see then. Melee goon rolls 4 d20 dice, each with +2 modifier. The results are, after the modification, 5, 10, 12 and 17. My defense is 12, so it means that 2 damage tokens are placed onto Carbon Connor's card right now. And this is not the end, because now the ranged goon will also activate. So, when ranged enemies activate, they move to the closest space from which they will have vision of you. If they reach it, they perform a ranged attack. They only use melee attacks if they begin the activation on a space already adjacent to a GridRunner. This ranged goon already has vision of me, so he doesn't need to move and performs a ranged attack from its card. Because the threat level is medium, the goon's ranged hit modifier is increased by 2 for a total of 6. The goon rolls 1 die and the result after the modification is 11, which means I do not receive any damage from this attack. All activated enemies have now performed their actions. It is time for the very last, 5th step of the round, the cool-off. In it, you always decrease the threat level by 4 before the start of the next round. Here it goes from 6 back to 2. Now the new round begins. I move the round counter to 2 and begin actions with the GridRunner. My first action will be my special ability action, Dash. It allows me to move by 3 spaces and then melee attack all adjacent enemies. Note that being adjacent to an enemy does not stop me from moving freely or provoke any extra attacks, and that I never have to spend the entire move that is available to me. I move by 2 spaces to place myself strategically between 2 goons and attack each of them in a single action. The first melee goon, I attack with 3 dice, and the results after the modification are 5, 9 and 19. The attack results in 1 damage, and because the goon has 2 health and has already received 1 damage earlier, he is destroyed. Now the ranged goon. The attack results are 15, 16 and 20, and with 12 defense and 2 health, this enemy is also destroyed. Destroying each enemy grants you a bounty indicated on the enemy card. You get credits that you can spend between the floors and the high score points in the same amount. Note the credits and high score that you gain on the adventure sheet. We receive 400 creds and 400 points. As I have used the Dash special ability, the threat level increases by 3. Now as my second action, I will use a move action. When using a move or run action, I can move by the number of spaces, but I can also spend one of those moves to open an adjacent door. This means that I can open the door and move by 1 space. The threat level is increased by 1. And in my last action, I am unable to attack the goon with my stronger melee attack because he's too far. I also cannot use the Dash special ability again because it can only be used once per round. I can though still try to do some damage to him with a ranged attack. I roll a 14, which is modified by -4 in my ranged attack, so no damage is dealt to the goon and the threat level is increased by 2 as a result of an attack action. I don't have any more actions, so it's time to roll for noise before the enemies activate. I roll an 11, so the threat level does not increase any further. Next step is again enemy activation. The threat level is high, so all enemies activate no matter where they are. First, the melee goon moves by 2, and this is not enough to reach a space adjacent to me, so he uses a ranged attack. The threat level is high, so both medium and high threat level bonuses apply. Melee goon attacks twice then. He rolls an 8, which misses, and he rolls a 19, that deals 1 damage, so I place 1 damage token on Carbon Connor's card. Then the ranged goon activates. His high threat bonus gives him a crit, which means that if he rolls a natural 20, the attack will get a special bonus, in this case an additional damage. He of course rolls a 20 and deals 2 more damage to Connor, leaving him at last HP. The round ends, so the threat level goes down by 4. We mark the beginning of the third round and the stakes are high. As the first action, I will dash again and place Connor to have both enemies in melee. I attack the ranged goon with results of 13, 14 and 23 after modification and destroy him with 3 damage. And I attack the melee goon with the results of 7, 15 and 16, which are enough to deal 2 more damage and destroy both goons with a single attack. I receive 200 credits and high score points for each destroyed enemy. Now, as there are no more enemies, I do not increase the threat level anymore. It is now set to 0 and does not increase until I explore the next floor. In this state, I could go back and visit all the crates in the room. However, the number of rounds, if you remember, affects the high score, so I will go straight for the exit. I use my second action to move onto the crate over here and I will check its content on the website, which says I found some credits, which is fantastic. And in the last action, I ran towards the space with exit B. I found the key to exit B at the beginning of the adventure. I can now leave the floor by clicking exit B on the website. Before leaving, check out the optional objectives at the bottom of the website. The challenge on this floor was to clear it without using the special ability. This means that I do not receive the plus 1000 bonus as I have used the dash twice. Once you leave the floor, a shop menu pops up. Here you can spend your credits to restore health and buy upgrades. I have 900 credits, so I can obtain plus 1 melee dice token for 250 and plus 2 melee bonus for 500. I mark the spending on my adventure sheet and I take the corresponding tokens to place next to Carbon Connor's card. Once you hit confirm, a new floor will pop up for you to set up in front of you and new challenges will await. Some challenges during the game will require you to use your strength, agility and intelligence to pass simple statistic tests in which you add the statistic value to a single d20 roll against a set difficulty. But the ultimate goal is always to defeat the final boss. In case you manage to do that, don't forget to count your high score along the way. You receive points equal to the bounty from each enemy, 1000 points for destroying the big boss, 500 points for destroying the last enemy on every floor, and points for special objectives listed on the website. When the run ends, you also receive 1 extra point for each unspent credit, and finally, you deduct 100 points for each round played. So, share your score on our Discord or Patreon. You will find the links in the description below, and this is all in this GridRunner tutorial. If you have any more questions about the rules, just ask here or consult the rulebook that is located on the website. See you at Cyberforge and stay cyber!